9 years ago, in late 2011, the Nintendo Switch was but a glimmer in the eyes of Nintendo shareholders. But the reign of Sony's follow-up to the massively successful PlayStation Portable, the PlayStation Vita, was just beginning. For its time, the Vita did things no other portable gaming device in history had done. But what you might not know is that the PlayStation Vita is still worth a buy in 2020. Let's play Name That Console. Experience console-quality games on the go. Stay connected everywhere. Play online seamlessly. And stay in touch with all your friends. Or even play at home on your TV in higher fidelity with a more comfortable controller. Switch? No. The PlayStation Vita can do all this in 2020. Though the Vita isn't a great replacement for a Switch or even a 3DS, considering the many titles specific to their libraries, the Vita remains an impressive device with an excellent catalog of games that you can enjoy for cheap. If you've got some extra spending money because you couldn't get your hands on a PS5, Series X, or new graphics card, you're in the right place. Today, we're going to get into why you should buy a PS Vita in 2020. The PlayStation Vita came with nearly all the possible tech buzzword hardware features of its time. Front and back touchscreens, front and back cameras, both Wi-Fi and 3G on certain models, a built-in mic, a gyroscope and virtual compass, and even GPS on the 3G variants. What's more is that for the PlayStation 3/Xbox 360 era of gaming, which the Vita launched at the end of, the Vita was powerful enough to drive games at current generation console fidelity. The Nintendo Switch is much more powerful than the Vita, yes, but the Switch can't compete with PlayStation 4/Xbox One fidelity. If you look at a game like Killzone Mercenary on the Vita, and imagine that running at a higher resolution on a bigger screen, that's what a lot of Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 games look like. Practically speaking, not only does the Vita have a number of interesting hardware features, it has the raw compute power to drive relatively modern-looking games. Perhaps the biggest feature of the Vita was its screen. A pristine OLED panel, known for the best blacks in the screen business. The first run of PlayStation Vitas came packed with this gorgeous screen, and much praise was given to the device when it was first reviewed because of its screen. Even today in 2020, OLED screens aren't cheap, and they're usually relegated to the high end of televisions and mobile phones. Back in 2011, when the Vita launched, the Vita was one of the easiest ways to experience an OLED display, and that still holds true today. But it's only true if you buy a 1000 series Vita, the first series, because later revisions of the Vita replaced the OLED screen with an LCD screen to cut costs. The PlayStation Vita launched with an OLED screen, without 3G, and with Wi-Fi for $249.99. Today you can find Vitas for a lot less, but you may have to do a little digging if you want the best deal on a specific series. The launch line of Vitas, known as PCH 1000 or 1000 series Vitas, come with the OLED panel, while the 2000 series or the Slim line of Vitas has an LCD screen. On eBay today, you can find 1000 series Vitas between $100 and $200. Though, unless you pay a careful attention to an auction and get a little lucky, you'll likely find one closer to $200. Depending on where you live and what's around, you might be able to walk into a local GameStop and find a Vita for as little as $100. But your mileage here may vary. Unlike the PSP, the PlayStation Vita uses proprietary memory cards to store games on, so you can't just pop in any old micro SD card you have lying around. Sony claimed this was to make sure the Vita's storage was always fast enough, which they claimed they couldn't depend on third-party cards. This was very similar to Microsoft's explanation as to why their new Xbox Series consoles use proprietary storage cards. The Vita only comes with a gig of internal storage, so you will need one. These cards were expensive at launch, and they still aren't cheap. On eBay or your average reseller, you'll likely find 16GB cards for around $40, while the larger 64GB cards will run you over $100. Luckily, Vita games aren't nearly as large as games are today, so you can pretty easily get away with an 8GB or 16GB card and never have to worry too much about space, depending on how many games you plan to keep installed at once. The core thrust of the Vita's early marketing positioned it as a big-budget, AAA machine, but a machine that you could take on the go, and many of the system's best and most impressive games made good on this promise. Games like Killzone Mercenary, Uncharted Golden Abyss, the Metal Gear Solid HD Collection, and Persona 4 Golden all bring console-level experiences to the handheld. But the Vita's core library isn't made up of big budget games at all. Many of the best games you can play on Vita are indie games like Gravity Rush, or simply smaller scale games like Stardust on the Vita. A huge abundance of JRPGs and visual novels also found their way to the system. Some mobile games were also ported to the system, and some of these, like Papers, Please, are particularly well suited to the Vita. And though there may not be any AAA Vita games coming out in 2020, in 2020 and beyond there are smaller indie titles. If you decide to go down the rabbit hole of custom firmware and homebrew, or simply buy a hacked Vita off eBay, this will open up a whole nother world of play to you. There are a number of emulators working on Vita, which can in turn play tons of games. With a full controller-style layout of buttons as well as dual cameras and touchscreens, any number of games can work on the Vita's hardware, which is why the platform is still seeing some support today. If you're just looking to play at home, the Vita can remote play PS4 games. And with the 1000 series OLED screen, it's not a bad way to experience modern games the Vita couldn't run itself, nor could the Switch, in your bed or around the house. Even if you've owned a Vita, you may never have heard of the PlayStation TV, or even know how a PlayStation TV relates to the Vita. This is in part an indictment of Sony's marketing of the PlayStation TV, and an explanation as to why the product was short-lived and eventually discontinued in 2015 after its launch in 2013. The PlayStation TV is a Vita without a screen. You pair with a controller and connect to your TV like a traditional video game console. The PSTV plays most Vita games, though not all of them, and can even upscale them up to 1080i. The PSTV can also play many PSP games, PS1 classics, and PlayStation Mini games. The PSTV also accepts Vita game cards and Vita memory cards, which are what is used as a storage device, just like the Vita itself. By simply taking a game or a memory card out of your Vita and plugging it into your PSTV, you can play your Vita games on a big screen with either a DualShock 3 or a DualShock 4 controller. Plus, the PSTV even sports an Ethernet connection, which drastically improves streaming and downloading. In effect, the Vita can do what the Nintendo Switch does now. Plus, it comes backed up with Sony's online service and integrated into the PlayStation ecosystem. The catch with the PSTV today is that since the product was so short-lived, they can be hard to find. On eBay, PSTVs go for anywhere in between $100 and $200, which is about what you would pay for an actual Vita. But if you can find one for a reasonable price, it's the ultimate Vita accessory. Trophies have been around since the PlayStation 3 introduced them as a competitor to the Xbox 360's achievements. 2 generations later, trophies are still going strong, and now there are more trophy hunters out there than ever. However, one of the biggest issues with trophy hunting is that it can be tedious, and when you don't have all that much free time to begin with, sometimes it can be hard to ever manage to finish platinuming a game. Vita games support trophies too, so you can start earning your trophies wherever you have a couple minutes to spare, and the Vita is easy to bring with you anywhere. Plus, just like with other games you can look up trophy or achievement guides and roadmaps for, all of that holds true for Vita games. And games that see releases on other platforms that also arrive on Vita can make returning to a favorite more worthwhile, because you can earn trophies on the second go-around too. If you're a seasoned trophy hunter interested in portability, a PSTV, depending on the deal, and a DualShock 4 is a reasonably economical way to open yourself up to a whole new platform to earn trophies from the comfort of your own home, and still safely within the embrace of the PlayStation ecosystem. What do you think about the Vita's value proposition today? Was the Vita a worthy successor to the PSP? And would you like to see a follow-up to the PS Vita? Possibly with some PS5 interactivity? Let us know in the comments down below. And if you like this video, make sure to subscribe to us here at The Gamer and ring the notification bell to stay up to date on all our latest videos.